This is Everybody Pulls the Tarp with your host, Andrew Moses. Each week, Andrew talks with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets.
My guest is Washington Commanders running back Austin Ekeler.
Every day we write a page of our life. The best thing is you have the pen in your hand.
Three-time Olympic gold medalist Tessa Virtue. Welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Thanks for thinking of me, and I'm a big fan of the podcast and of yours. So anytime you text or call, I'm here.
Mike Mills from REM.
The key to that was realizing at some point fairly early on that this was probably our life's work.
Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas.
My guest is 2023 WNBA Coach of the Year, Stephanie White.
The hardest thing for a coach is trying to prioritize how much time you put in one area or another.
Former MLB player, coach, and manager Clint Hurdle.
That is the best title of any podcast out there in America, and the content matches up to it. Andrew, you do a fantastic job. I'm a big fan. Keep up the great work.
World-renowned organizing expert Shira Gill.
You can improve your life simply by removing things.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people.
Let's go. Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I am so excited to share this week's episode with you. This week, my guest is international magician and escape artist Matt Johnson. And listeners, Matt's story is inspiring, and the ideas he shares have the power to help all of us as we chase ambitious goals, navigate adversity along the way, and so much more. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say this. If you've been listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp for a while now, welcome back. And if you are a new listener, I just want to take a moment to say how glad I am that you found the show and officially welcome you to the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family. I hope you'll hit that follow button right now in whatever podcast app you're listening to, and join me each week so we all can learn from the world's top performers together. Okay, now let me get this conversation with Matt all set up for you. As I mentioned moments ago, Matt is an international magician and escape artist. He has appeared on Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, and many more. And check this out. Matt's 2018 audition on Britain's Got Talent has now been viewed more than 500 million times. In front of Simon Cowell and the other judges, Matt defied death while locked and chained inside a tank filled with water. You've got to see it to believe it, but here's what happened. Matt climbed into a tank submerged in water. The tank was padlocked and his hands handcuffed outside the box. And he picked the lock in order to escape. That year, it was voted the number 2 most viewed act on Britain's Got Talent and the number 1 most dangerous. That moment, which was only possible thanks to decades of Matt's hard work and persistence, catapulted Matt's career to new heights. In addition to his incredible moments on TV, Matt has toured with the Illusionists and performed on Broadway. He also headlines on both Celebrity and Royal Caribbean cruise ships, including the Celebrity Beyond, where I first met Matt, and the Celebrity Edge, where Matt recently announced he's headed next. I recently got to see Matt perform live twice, while aboard the Celebrity Beyond, on vacation with family and dear friends. Matt's performances are unlike anything that I had ever seen. And the way he combines magic, escapes, comedy, and a captivating stage presence is truly unmatched. And most importantly, Matt doesn't simply entertain. He inspires. Throughout his performances, Matt weaves in stories and lessons learned from his own personal journey that leave the audience feeling motivated and ready to live life by Matt's mantra, never give up. And here's the other thing I love about Matt. When he is on stage performing, he never makes it just about him. Like a true tarp puller, he celebrates everybody that is a part of his journey, including the people around him who help him do what he does. Towards the end of his live performances, he always takes a moment to celebrate by name the crew members that help him behind the scenes. And that's exactly what it means to live the Everybody Pulls the Tarp mindset. Well, in addition to seeing him perform live on the ship, Matt and I also had the opportunity to catch up for coffee a few times over the course of the week as well. We got to know each other, shared stories, learned a ton from one another, and have continued to keep in touch since. And as soon as I returned home from the cruise and was back here in the studio, Matt and I reconnected to dive even deeper into his story and recorded the conversation that you are about to hear. Our conversation is all about following your dreams, leaning into your strengths, turning ideas into action, bouncing back after adversity strikes, and so much more. My friends, there is something in this episode for everyone, and I hope you take away as much from Matt as I have. Now, listeners, as always, this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Additionally, the performance elements Matt discusses in this episode are extremely dangerous and should not be tried at home. Listener discretion is advised. With that, it's time for this week's episode. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Matt Johnson. Where I want to begin, I want to go way back. As a kid, your first exposure to magic cards and magic, take me back to that moment, paint the scene.
Yeah, it was a little late actually for me. I was about 12 years old, which for a lot of magicians is kind of late. And my dad took me to a festival and bought a little magic deck of cards for himself. And he was trying to do it and he couldn't figure out how to do it. So he gave it to me and I read the instructions, I figured it out. And then I started doing it. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I used to go to the local market and buy little plastic magic tricks. And then a friend of mine had a little magic set and I'd tell him to bring it over to the house. And we'd put on shows in the shed at the back of the garden. And it just kind of snowballed from that, really. That's kind of how I got into it. A big pivotal turning point for me was my mom hired a magician for my brother and sister's birthday party. And halfway through the show, my sister stood up and said, "My brother does magic." And I was like this kind of nerdy teenager. I was like, "No, sit down, shut up. I don't." Anyway, he took me aside after the show and he said, "Listen, there's a magic shop in our local city, not a joke shop, like a proper honest to goodness magic shop." And he told me where it was. And I went there at 13 years old on a Saturday. And that turned into the moment that changed my life. And I just started going every Saturday, first one in at 9, last one out at 5, 8 hours, all through my teen years. I went there pretty much 52 weeks a year. I went to this magic shop and hung out with magicians and learned my craft. And that's how it started.
I'm curious, like, when you really think back and reflect on some of those moments, Matt, like, what do you think at its core was so interesting to you about magic?
That's a really good question. If I really think about it, I think what really endeared me to it was that I was a shy kid and I was bullied a little bit at school. And I found that when I did magic, people were interested and it was like a superpower, right? And as I got better at it, that superpower became better. And it allowed me to break out of my shell a little bit. I was still shy, but whenever I was doing magic, it was like I opened up and I blossomed. And for me, I think that's what it was. It was about having something that made me cool, that made me interesting, and made bullies leave me alone for a little bit. I think that's ultimately what it was. I think that's really what it was. And in many ways, I think that is what it's always been, because I'm quite a shy guy. When I'm not on stage, I'm quite quiet. So I think that's what it's always been, really, is that superpower.
So interesting, Matt. When did you start to feel like you got pretty good at it? Because there's a difference between enjoying something and feeling like you're pretty good at it.
I don't know. I'll tell you when it happens. I'm always learning. I'm always learning.
That's the growth mindset, right? Always learning.
Yeah, it's the truth, though, right? You never stop. If you stop learning, you are not doing it right. Time to give up. And I never give up. So I started going to that magic shop and I would buy books and videos and magic tricks. And I'd ride the bus home and I'd read the books and I'd learn and I'd practice. And as I started to get older through my teen years, I distinctly remember there was a time I was about 16 years old and I'd not done it for a living. And somebody came in the magic shop and said, "Oh, John Smith at the local bowling alley is not doing the magic shows for the kids anymore. They're looking for another magician." And I was 16 years old and I was surrounded by my peers, a lot older than me, a lot more experienced than me. But my parents are self-employed and I was always given that just get up and go attitude. Start your own business. Do it for yourself. Be your own boss. So when I heard that, I got on the bus. I went straight to the bowling alley at 16 years old. I walked in and I got myself a job. And so at the time, I was paid £100, right? We're talking, gosh, I'm going back now. I'm talking 36 years ago, but I got paid £100 retainer every week. And kids would come in and bowl and eat burgers. And then I'd come out and do a 5-minute magic show at the table in the restaurant. And whether I did one show, whether I did 10 shows in a week, I got £100 a week, check. So £400 a month. But you have to bear in mind that all my friends had got paper rounds making £10 or £20. And my parents would pick me up, drive me to the bowling alley. I'd do my shows and then I'd go home and I got paid £400 a month for doing that, 16 years old. So that's really where I first started doing it professionally. And I think when you start to take what you do as a hobby as a kid and something you're passionate about, and then you start to try and do it for a living, it opens up a whole different can of worms. You've got to get good and you've got to get good quick, otherwise you're going to lose your job, right? So it forced me in that environment to get good quickly, to learn. If I got booed off, I kept getting up until I didn't get booed off anymore. And it forced me to adapt. It's like going to a country, right? The easiest way to learn a language is immerse yourself in a country. It's the same thing. It's to immerse yourself in the environment that you're not comfortable with. And that's how I started to get better at it.
So I'm curious, Matt. I mean, you and I talked about this when we spent a bunch of time together aboard the Celebrity Beyond just a month or so ago. You reminded me that while it looks like in many ways overnight success, had not been an overnight success. Talk about what really was a 30-year or so odyssey, really developing your craft and developing yourself in this profession long before anybody around the world knew you from the incredible audition on Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, I mean, I left school at 18 and put an ad in the Yellow Pages and started a business. That's what my dad told me to do, so I did. And I was successful right out the gate doing kids' parties and stuff and weddings. And then I ended up getting a job. There was a newspaper in England called The Stage and Television Today that was for entertainers and artists. And in the back, they had a situation vacant for artists, right? Entertainers. And I opened it up. I was like maybe 20, 21, 22. I opened it up. Magician wanted for a hotel in Japan, right? And so I'm like, okay. And this was when you recorded your demo on a VHS video cassette. And so I filmed the demo. I put on my best touch, filmed the demo, sent it to Japan. And they got videos from all over the world. I got the job at 21 years old. I got the job. So I flew to Japan. I was the magician for Hilton Hotel in Nagoya, Japan. I was in Japan for 2 years. And then I ended up meeting a Canadian girl there and tore up my ticket to England and bought one to Canada and moved there. That's why I'm in Vancouver. And then I started performing again for kids' parties, weddings, company parties. But it took a while, like, to build that business up because I had to wait for my visa and my residency. So for the first time in my life, I had to get a real job. A lot of people don't know this, but I got a real job. I was delivering appliances like dishwashers and washers, and because I'd never done anything other than magic. I didn't know anything else. So I started doing that. I learned to install dishwashers and things. And I did that for a while. Then I delivered furniture for a while, all the while building up my business. It got to a point where I ended up with a successful business as a magician in Vancouver doing, again, kids' parties, weddings, company parties. And I would say that I was pretty successful. Like I made a 6-figure income out of just doing magic shows in Vancouver. I was pretty successful. All the while, I've wanted to go on Britain's Got Talent. And a lot of, there were local magicians in Vancouver that sat me down and said, "You're not good enough." One magician in particular who was really well regarded in the world of magic, who lived in Vancouver. I'm not going to name names, it's not important. But he literally looked at me and said, "You're way above your station if you think you're good enough. You're not." And I really took that hard.
I remember you telling me a version of that story, and this was somebody you really looked up to. This was like maybe not a mentor, but somebody you really looked up to.
Achieved everything that he wanted to achieve in magic, in the world of magic. And so fast forward into now, I believe our greatest gift in life is to inspire other people. And I just was on a call yesterday with a magician from the UK, giving some advice. And I will never stop doing that because I've got my piece of the pie. It's up to me to encourage the next generation of magicians. I've got my piece. I'm good. I'm happy. So in my mind, he should have done the same thing, but he didn't. But what he did do, and I'm not going to give him the credit for this, but what it did do is it put a fire in my belly. When I sat down and really thought about it, I thought, no, you're wrong. I can do this. So I started applying for Britain's Got Talent. And I applied by sending videos because I lived in Vancouver, but I'm from the UK, right? So I would send videos online. They had a portal where you would send a video and a description of yourself. And I sent videos for 5-6 years. No response. No response. Every year I sent videos doing magic. No response. And then it was the 6th year I started doing an underwater escape that I've been working on for about 1.5 years. And it was never meant for my show. It was a personal journey of discovery. And I sent a video of it and they said, yes, come on the show. So I went in 2017. I went and I paid all the money. I paid $10,000 for flights, shipping and props, hotels. I don't know if I told you this, but 2017, they said, yeah. So I went there. I walk out on stage during the day. We're doing a rehearsal for the show that night. They've got a camera block, everything. And I get in the tank, they lock the lid, and the tank cracked. There was a malfunction in the plastic and it cracked and it flooded the set of Britain's Got Talent. Shut the whole production down.
Oh my goodness.
All the water rolled off the edge of the stage. So now I'm devastated. My dreams are done. Everything I've tried for 6 years to get on that show is done. I've spent all this money. I'm devastated. I was devastated. I came back home to Vancouver. I stayed in bed for days. I was devastated. And then I got myself out of bed and I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. And I got that tattoo right there. Never give up. That's where it started. And that's the water cresting out the tank there. That's the water. This is the date that it happened. And I started sending emails back and no response. And after about 30 emails, they said, fine, come on the show. So I went 2018.
About a year later, right? February.
Exactly a year later, yes. And in February 8th, 2018, I got 4 yeses. By never giving up, I achieved what I set out to do. And it started my journey on Britain's Got Talent. And it changed my life. And that was at 45 years old. 45 years old, I did that. So I was already making a living, but it changed the course of my life. But it took a long time and complete sacrifice and belief in myself that I could do it, because I could have given up years before, but I did it and it changed the course of my life. And here we are.
I always say it takes decades to become an overnight success. And
if
your story
probably
is
more, actually, it probably takes more.
Probably more.
Yeah.
Matt, there's so much I want to dig into about what you shared there. And for those listening, Matt just showed these tattoos on the backs of his hands. One is the date of the situation at the first audition for Britain's Got Talent, where the set got flooded and essentially left him devastated after 6 years of trying to get on the show. And then his other hand has the date of the 4 yeses on Britain's Got Talent. I remember, Matt, when you were telling me about that tattoo, when we met aboard the ship, you told me that every day when you brushed your teeth, you saw the date that you had the mishap on the set where things got flooded and it said, never give up. Every day you were brushing your teeth, you would see those words, never give up.
That's why I put it there. So I couldn't not see it. It would be in my face every day. It's so important when you go through times of adversity, loss, or struggles. It's so important to remind yourself, and it can be so difficult to remind yourself, to have the motivation to do that. You need a good support team behind you, a good family, a good structure, but you also have to push through that adversity. And it can be very, very, very difficult doing that in your own garage, filling the tank with water and practicing, not knowing if you're going to get thousands of miles away and get on the show. It can be so difficult. So for me, I needed that visual cue so that I would start my day that way, which is why I put it there. And at the time, actually, I didn't really have any tattoos on my hands. So I also felt like it would be in everybody else's face as well. You saw it a mile off, right? And so it was a constant reminder for me, and it still is in my show. It's a mantra. I don't want to say preach, but it's a mantra that I push in my show to everybody to never give up on their dreams. Never give up on what you want. It's never too late in life, whether you're 9 or 99, to wake up tomorrow and start anew, because tomorrow's the first day of the rest of your life, right?
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll talk about it as we continue on in our conversation. But that's one of the many things that I just think is so special about you as a performer, Matt, having seen you perform live twice. It's not just a show, it's a movement because of your message and because of the way you communicate and because of how you weave your story into your performances. It is a movement, and it's meant to make people feel a certain way and inspire them to take on challenges in their own lives. I know that that's how I walked out of the theater in each of those two performances that I saw you perform live, and it changed me for the better. And it's performances that I will never forget. And I know everybody in those theaters will never forget them as well. Matt, I'm curious, thinking back on those 6 years that you were really grinding it out, trying to get on Britain's Got Talent, and then that year after the mishap at the rehearsal where the set got flooded and you had kind of reached the mountain where you were climbing and you got sent back in this really, really, really demoralizing and devastating way that you talked about there. If you could go back and give yourself advice in that period of time, like what advice would you give that version of Matt now?
It would literally just be those 3 words: never give up. And I give it to everybody now. Anybody that calls me for advice, especially in my line of work, magicians, if somebody messages me and says, can I hop on a call with you and get some advice? I always say yes. I never charge them for it. My advice is free to people in my business that want to excel and get better. I never charge them for it. All I ask is that when they succeed, they pass it on to somebody else, because that's the circle of life. That's the way it should be. If I went back for that week that I was really down on myself, I would say, pick yourself up. Don't be down on yourself. Maybe I would have got there a little bit quicker. But actually, looking back on it, I believe that I responded correctly. I believe I did everything I needed to do. And that comes from my upbringing and my parents saying it's okay to be self-employed. It's okay to not be the best at school. And I think it gave me a good foundation and a good backbone to be able to stand up. At the time, it was devastating, but I didn't let myself wallow in it for too long. I knew, again, that fire in the belly, I knew that I'd got no choice. I had to keep moving forwards. So I don't know that I would give myself any different advice, really. I think the only advice I might have given myself is start doing the water escape a lot earlier, 6 years earlier, because it might have got me on the show earlier. I'll tell you what else I did as well. I'll tell you what else I did in that 6-year journey is I changed my image. I grew a beard. I got lots of tattoos. And I did that because I felt I arrived at a place in my business as a magician locally in Vancouver where I was burnt out because I was doing 3 shows on a Saturday, 3 on a Sunday. It was robotic. I didn't need to think about it. I was burnt out. And I was getting to a place where I just couldn't do it anymore. And I remember thinking, if I'm going to do this, I have to be authentically me. I got a couple of tattoos on my upper arms. I thought, but I've got to be authentically me. Who is me? Who do I want to be? And ultimately, this is who I want to be. And I always worried about looking like this because I always thought, well, my corporate clients won't hire me because I'm covered in tattoos. Big companies like this ship that I'm on Celebrity Beyond Now won't hire me because I'm covered in tattoos. But I also realized if I don't live my journey authentically, that 1, there's no point, and 2, by being authentic, it could be the catapult that makes me memorable and different. And that's the important thing, is being memorable and different. I might lose a lot of my clients, but the ones that I keep, I can probably charge a bit more because I'm authentic and I'm unique and I'm memorable. And that was the key for me. And that all happened in that mix. It's like all these ingredients got thrown in the bowl and it all happened in that mix. You know what I mean? And it just started evolving and I just became me. And then I realized that when I'm on stage, what's authentic is my stories. Instead of telling stories that weren't true, which a lot of magicians do, it's theater, I started just basically telling my life story. And you can't forget the act because it's your life. You can't forget your life, right? So it allows me to ad lib on it. And then when I started telling my life story, my adversities and the people I've lost, like my dad and my grandma that have passed, and I brought them into the show with memories and things, I started to realize that something's happening here. Like everybody in the audience has the same stories. They've lost somebody, they've been through adversity, they want to give up, they're told they can't, they're not good enough. So by sharing my stories, we all connect. And that's where the magic is. People don't remember tricks. People remember people and how you make them feel. And I want people to walk out the theater feeling something and it changing their life. Listen, I'm no guru. I'm not responsible for changing people's lives. But if I can implant a little seed, a little nugget that makes them think, you know what? I always wanted to play guitar in a band. I'm going to go do it. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what happened. The whole mix came together and that's just what happened. But I don't know I would have given myself any different advice at the time.
I will say, like, the moment that you came out on stage, the first time I saw you perform live in that theater, I mean, the whole look is incredible. I mean, you got the jeans, the sleeveless shirt, the tattoos, the beard. I mean, when you talk about something that's uniquely yours, it works remarkably. I remember right off the bat noticing your shoes, just how cool your shoes were. I mean, everything worked together. I mean, you know, we've talked about this. I mean, I obsess over every little detail about everything. And it's evident that there's nothing that's part of your show that is not painstakingly thought out by you and meticulously curated for a particular purpose.
Yeah. The trick is making it look like it's not purposefully curated. The trick is to make it seem like it's a lot of it's ad-libbed and it feels fresh, right? And that's difficult when you do the show week in, week out, hundreds of times. At some point, you become robotic. It's just the way it is. But I try very much to put myself in the moment. And I do that by connecting with the audience, by making eye contact with somebody in the audience. If I'm talking and then I'll look at a lady and go, you know what I mean, love? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'll really focus on that person and that sucks me right back into the moment. And that's so important, whether you're on stage or whether you're in a meeting or whatever you're doing and whatever line of work you're in. It's so important to ground yourself in the moment and not just deliver it like it's water coming out of a tap. You have to ground yourself. And so I do that as well on stage.
All right, everyone. We'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today.
And the look that I have, it has evolved and it's still evolving. The shoes only went in the show last year. And the reason I wanted them, the shoes I have, it's not the ego thing, but the shoes I have he's talking about are Louboutins. And they have red soles. And then they're high top boots and they've got spikes, black spikes all over them.
They're really cool.
Yeah. But I wanted the moment when I do the straitjacket, when I lay down in the straitjacket, I lay down on the stage for them to clip me into the carabiners to lift me up in the air. We used to have a captain on here, Captain Kate, that is a social media giant, but she would wear Louboutins. She'd walk on heels, and then when she'd walk off, she got red soles. And I remember saying to somebody, what are those? Oh, they're Louboutins. Louboutins, what's that? And then I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool if when I'm doing the straitjacket and I lay down on stage, if my feet go towards the audience and they see these red soles, they're going to know what they are. Because you've got to be authentic, but you've also got to present this otherworldly image, right, of being an entertainer. And so for me, that was a really cool moment because I knew that people in the audience would go, oh, he must be successful. He's wearing Louboutins. And so they cost me a fortune, but I don't wear them. I only wear them on stage. They cost me so much money. I will not put those to asphalt. There is no way they're going on concrete. No way. So I just wear them on stage. And every time I lay down, I can hear people going, oh. And then also with the jeans, like black jeans, and then the cut-off shirt. Actually, it's a dry weave shirt that you would wear in the gym, but it's just black. And it accomplishes a couple of things. One, it's actually got stuff infused into the cloth, like aloe or something. So it actually cools my skin down when I'm on stage. And also, it allows my tattoos to show. So I say a joke, I don't have anything up my sleeves except my sleeves because I've got full sleeve tattoos. And also, when you're watching a magician, everybody says it's up his sleeves. So I start my show with no sleeves, right? And that's the whole point. And so it instantly creates this image, and it's a memorable image that people remember. And that's important. It's implanted. So when they go away, they'll never forget it. They'll never forget who I am and what I stand for and what I look like. And it's easy. Somebody said to me years ago, you've got to be able to describe yourself in one sentence or whatever. So I'm the bald guy with tattoos and a beard that locks himself in a box and never gets up. I mean, it's such a caricature. That is what you need to succeed. But it's evolved and it's still evolving. It will never stop evolving. So,
Matt, what advice would you give someone who is doing something kind of like everybody else is doing it, and they're having some success, and they're contemplating some type of change, some type of way that they would kind of step outside kind of that lane that everybody else is in and take a bold risk to try and achieve what you've described over the last few minutes, which is standing out, separating yourself, creating separation from that sea of sameness. What advice would you give someone who is really doubting a move like that?
Just do it. That's easier said than done, though. It depends where you are in life. If you've got a family that relies on you, if you have kids that rely on you from an income perspective, if you could just take away the income and it wasn't an issue, we would all just do what we want to do, right? And that's the key to happiness, and the key to success is doing what you love. Because I always say I do my show for free. I won't tell them that, but I do it for free because I love it. I love it. So the fact that I get to travel the world and get paid for it is just the gravy on the top. That's the key to life, is doing what you love. Some people fall into a 9-to-5 office job and they love it, and that's perfect for them. Some people don't. Some people do it because they have to pay the bills and they wish they could be a rock star or an artist, but it doesn't make them any money. In the beginning, you don't make any money. You're a starving artist. You're doing it for the passion. If you're really feeling stuck, though, and you really want to make a change, the only thing you can do is do it. And what you can do is put certain things in place. You could, for example, if you have a full-time profession, Monday to Friday, keep doing that, but then work extra hard and go out in the evenings and perform in open mics and coffee shops and bars. This is if you're an entertainer, right? Or whatever it is. It's easier now than ever to reach an audience with the internet and with social media. So if you've always wanted to run a social media account or a YouTube account, keep your job, pay your bills, but work on that on the side. I wouldn't advise people to just leave the job, jump off the cliff and go for it, because there's a possibility the parachute might not open, right? So I would advise people to use the structure of what they've got as a foundation, but then if there's something else they want to do, work on it on the side until it reaches a point where it can take over from what you're doing. This is from a financial perspective. That would be my biggest advice. But you know what? We only get one shot in life. We don't get do-overs. And what I don't want to do is get to the end of my life, where I'm taking my last breath, and think, I didn't try. I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. I want to get to the end and have a scrapbook full of memories and look back and say, look what I achieved. Look what I did. Because I didn't give up and I tried and I didn't listen to the people that said I couldn't do it. That's a much more fulfilling life, I think. And I think it is for everybody. I think people are just scared of the unknown. But the unknown can be really exciting if you just embrace it and you go for it. It's very exciting to wake up every morning and not know Is my phone going to ring today? Am I going to book a gig? Covering myself in tattoos, is that going to work out, or am I going to get no shows? Like, just go for it. Just go for it. And you never know. You never know. You might just live the life of your dreams. You might just live the life of your dreams.
You never know until you just try. And I am a big believer that action sparks more action and momentum sparks more momentum. Matt, I'm curious. We've talked a lot over the last few minutes about that kind of decisive image change that you really worked through and how it propelled your career and your business, the decision to do that. But if I'm not mistaken, it was also around that time that you changed your appearance and image on stage, that you also began to really tinker with what you were doing as a performer. It was around that time that you started to really develop the theater style show and start to mix in the escapes and the magic and some different elements that you've worked with. Talk about that.
It all happened over about a 6-year duration. That duration that I was sending videos to Britain's Got Talent, it happened around that time. And when I first started sending videos, I wasn't really unique. I didn't have a unique look. I wasn't doing unique magic. And about 3 or 4 years into that, I started doing the water escape. There's a reason that I started doing the water escape. It was not part of my plan to be an escape artist. It was not even on my radar. I was a big fan of Houdini as a kid, but it wasn't on my radar to do escapes in my show. What happened was, if I can segue a little bit, my brother, Jonathan, my younger brother, is in his mid-40s. He suffers with a rare genetic disease called tuberous sclerosis. And it causes calcium deposits all over his body and in his brain. And he was born with it. It's not curable. And one of the things that does is it causes seizures, right? And they're not curable seizures. So it's better with medication now. He can go about 10 to 14 days, and then he'll have a big seizure, right? And when he has a seizure, he clamps his teeth down. He's aware, he's in his body, but he can't breathe. And I've watched him have 2 or 3 in a row where his lips have gone blue and he's gone into a coma, right? This has happened. And it still happens. He can't have a job. He can't drive, because you never know when this is going to happen. He's just going to fall down flat and have a seizure. So I've been on a trip. I've been sending videos to Britain's Got Talent. And then I was on a trip to England to visit my family. And my brother had multiple massive seizures and got taken in an ambulance to the hospital. And then he was fine. He came through it. And when I went back to Canada, I said to my wife, this is so hard as his brother to watch him go through this. And I'm born and I don't have what he has. And I carry on with my day and just go through life with not really any worries or cares. And I watch him and I can't do anything about it. And in that moment, I said to my wife, you know what? I need to understand what it feels like, though, to be in your body and not be able to breathe. So I started going to a swimming pool at 6 in the morning when it opened. I went 3-4 days a week. No training, no YouTube training, didn't know what I was doing. I just told the lifeguards, I'm going underwater until it hurts and then I'm going to come out, and just watch me. And they got used to it. And I would go every 3 or 4 times a week when it first opened, and they got used to me, and I kept doing it and I kept doing it. I did it for about 6 months. And I got myself up to 5 minutes underwater, right?
5 minutes underwater.
I went from about 30, 40 seconds up to about 4.5, 5 minutes underwater. And I thought, I cracked it. But then I realized, now I can get there, and it hurts, it burns, but I can do it. And then I thought, but that's not, when it really hurts, I can just come out. And my brother can't do that. So I got a company, a plastics company, to build me a tank. And I put it on my friend's lawn and we filled it with water, and I got in. Bearing in mind I'd done 4.5, 5 minutes, I got in, we locked the lid, and I lasted 20 seconds. And I freaked out. And that's when I realized that's what my brother goes through. And then it was another 6 months to a year of being in that tank and getting used to the space and adding handcuffs and chains and locks. And after this journey of a year and a half, I thought, you know what? I've got a show coming up at a theater. I was just starting to get into theater shows, and I thought, I'm going to put it in the show. So I did, and I videoed it, and I sent the video to Britain's Got Talent, and they said yes. And I was blown away. And It was never meant to be in my show. It was a journey about my brother, and it became the thing that made me successful. And then I did Britain's Got Talent. Then after that, I toured with Cirque du Soleil. I ended up in a show on Broadway with the Flying Wilenders. And then this ship called and said, we're building a brand new ship. We're launching it 2022 out of England. We'd like you to headline it. And I've been here ever since, 4 years. Changed my life. And then I did other shows, America's Got Talent, Penn and Teller Fool Us, Late Show with James Corden, The World's Best. And all of these shows were me doing escapes, which is never what I wanted to do. I am not a stunt guy or a thrill seeker, but it just ended up being the only thing people wanted to see. And at the time, I've got tattoos and a beard, and I fit that look and the curled mustache, and I fit that kind of vaudevillian strongman look, and I started doing the escapes. And it's just all I did. I did the underwater escape hundreds of times. And that's just the way my life went. And I wasn't an escape artist, but I was. Suddenly I was. And that's what happened. And then here we are now. And the water I don't do very often, if at all, anymore, because I've drowned twice. I've been physically revived twice. And that's not fun. And I've had a lot of accidents in my career since then. So I try not to do as much. I've gone back to my magic and my comedy and illusion, and I do an escape, but I try to keep it low key.
Well, when you talk about your performance, you mentioned that they're magic, comedy, escape, illusion. I mean, there's so many different dimensions to you as a person, Matt, and to your performance. And I think that's just one of the many things that makes you unique and who you are, and is one of the many reasons why you've been so successful after all these years of just continuing to develop and be open-minded to all these different things. It's truly remarkable. The audition on Britain's Got Talent has been viewed online over 500 million times. I mean, it's almost unimaginable to think about such a massive number. Can you even put that into perspective? I mean, over 500 million people have seen that?
It's really interesting when I travel the world, and I've been everywhere, all corners, Panama, Mexico City, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Australia, all over Mediterranean. I mean, I've been everywhere. And even now to this day, it amazes me that I can hop off a plane in Saudi Arabia and somebody will come up to me and go, "Is this you?" and show me the YouTube video. It still happens. And it never gets old. It's mind-boggling to me because it's like, yeah, it's me, but it's like an out-of-body experience. It almost doesn't feel like me, but it is me. And I think that's the thing. It never gets old. You can't ever take it for granted. You can't ever stay humble. Stay humble about it all. And that's what I try to do, is stay humble about it. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Talk about just idea generation. I mean, you talked about a few minutes ago the inspiration for the tank escape and the role that your brother and your relationship with your brother played in that. Are you someone who gets ideas and inspiration from lots of different places? Talk about where ideas come from for Matt Johnson.
I used to create magic for magicians. There's a couple of websites that sell magic to magicians all over the world. And in that transitional period, I ended up being the face for one of these massive magic companies worldwide. They'd put videos out of me doing their tricks, and I would create magic. And so a lot of magicians all over the world buy my magic or my videos or my books, even now. But I don't do that anymore. I used to travel and lecture all over the world to magic societies and magicians. I don't do it now. I really pretty much just create for myself. And a lot of my ideas, whether it be escapes or magic, will come when I'm watching somebody else perform. Not a magician, but I might be watching a singer or a musician or the cast production shows on the ship. And I'm looking at it and I'm seeing the whole. I'm seeing the music and the lighting and the choreography and how they use the screens and what images they use. And I'm always looking at that and I'm always thinking, what could I do on that stage? And as I watch these shows, I think, oh, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could do that, or an idea will pop into my head. And then when something pops in, we just put a new thing in the show now with a cardboard box that I appear out of at the start of the show, like a light. It gets lifted up, it's light, and then it grows, and then I appear. It's only just gone in the show, but I've been working on that idea for a year, probably a year. Yeah, about a year. It started in my head from watching a show, and then it started to evolve and percolate. The thing is with me, when I get ideas like that, I have to see them through. Even if that doesn't stay in the show, I'm not convinced yet it will stay in the show, but it's in the show now. But I have to see it from here, the spark, to it being on stage. I have to go through that process, and it costs money and it costs time, because these things have to be built. They have to be R&D'd. They have to be tested. They have to be choreographed, lit, changed. It takes money and time. But once it's in there, it has to come out. It has to get on stage. That's how I express it. I've got to make it into a physical, tangible thing, and I've got to see if it works. And sometimes I create things and I put them in the show and they don't work. The audience doesn't react, or it's like an old pair of socks that's got holes in. They're the most comfortable socks you wear. And when you put new socks on, they feel itchy and scratchy and they're not quite right. Well, when you put a new magic trick in the show, that's what it feels like. It feels awkward. And I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. But you have to go through that process of creation in order to get to a place where it becomes something that's in your show. So there's things in my show I've done for 25 years that are still evolving. And it's hard. It's very easy. It's like we were talking about going through life with a job and never really coming out of that, doing the things you love. You're just doing the job to pay the bills. It's the same with my show. I could keep doing the same show, the one that I'm comfortable with. But ultimately, it's not going to get me forward. It's not going to get me where I want to go. And it's going to get robotic. And eventually the cruise company's going to go, you know what, now they've seen it a million times. I've got to evolve. Nobody's forcing me to do it, but I have to do it in order to stay current and to protect my investment, which is my job doing what I love. I have to evolve. So I've got to put myself in those situations that I don't enjoy in order to get to where I'm trying to go. And so, I create, and I might watch a movie. I might hear a piece of music. There's music in the show that I've seen on movies, and it's like that will inspire something in me. It's all that. And I never went to theatre school, drama school. I learned the stagecraft, upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right. I learned it from doing it. I can look at a spotlight now and tell you what percentage it's at. If it's at 20% intensity, 30%, 35%, I can just see it because I've done it for so long. And so choreography, musicality, costuming, lighting, I create everything in my show. There's no team behind it. I create the whole thing. And then the tech team put it into, I can't operate lights, but I know what I'm talking about. So I create everything, every aspect of my show. I create the music, the timing, the choreography. And I love that process. That in many ways is my favorite part of magic, is that creative process in putting something together. And it will evolve. Things will always change. The light will get tweaked. The music will change. The timing will change until you just get it quite right. And it takes months and years to get to that position with something.
Months and years. And that's one of the many things I admire about you, Matt. I was just struck by, again, all the attention to detail, the fact that you take responsibility for every aspect of that show. But I was also struck by the way that you celebrated everybody else who played a part in the show, all the techs, all the operations staff, everybody. And it was a moment of the show that I will really, really never forget. And I asked you, I said, do you do that every night? And you went around and you named every person on the operations team, every tech who was helping with the lights, with the sound, all these different things. And you honored them, you celebrated them. It was just an incredible moment. And I asked you if you do that all the time. And you said, yes, Andrew, because without those people, I'm just a man standing in the dark.
With no sound, nobody can hear me. They are the heart and soul of the theater. Listen, if you take a famous singer and you just put them out there without a microphone, it's okay. But it's the way that you wrap that up and deliver it. And I couldn't do that without that team. And it doesn't matter whether it's on this ship or a royal ship or whether I go to a theater on land. When I walk in that space, I immediately befriend the tech team. I make them realize that they're the important ones. It's not me, right? They're working a lot harder than I am. The crew on the ship is working a lot harder than I am. I'm so blessed and lucky to be in the position I'm in and do what I love, but I couldn't do it without that team. So I have nothing but love for them. They're superheroes, they're stars. And when things don't go right, they think on their feet and they evolve in the moment. And live theater, things always go wrong in live theater.
Yeah.
So it's so important to me in my show that I take that moment to bring people out and tell you what their names are. Because these people a lot of times are in dark booths, so you can't see them. They're up in the sky, they're running lights, you can't see them. It's so important that the audience knows that they're there and this show exists because they're there, because without them it wouldn't. And I've always believed in that. I treat everybody the way I want to be treated. And I do my best to appreciate everybody around me that makes me look good. So yeah, every show.
That's exactly what it means to live the everybody pulls the tarp mindset. I mean, those two ideas right there, that idea that when you're creating, when you're innovating, when you're putting the show together, you are willing to take responsibility for it all and get into the nitty gritty and every single detail. There's nothing beneath you. And then when you're bringing it to life on stage, recognizing and celebrating all of the people that are playing a role in helping you bring that show to life. I mean, it's just
100%.
remarkable. And it is exactly what we talk about every week on this podcast.
And when you talked about, when I met you and you talked about where that came from, everybody pulls the tarp, your story of joining an organization and being told, oh, you got to go down and pull the tarp. And you said, what? And then you were so surprised that everybody was down there, the CEO and everybody was down there pulling this tarp. And yeah, you know what? It never really occurred to me that's what I'm doing, but I am doing, because I'm someone that gets stuck in. I support the team whenever it's needed. Before I come on stage, I'm backstage. If a table needs moving and one guy's grabbing one end, I'll grab the other. And I'll move a table and I'll carry my props up to the stage. And it's stepping up under pressure, I guess, to make sure that the whole operation succeeds. And that's important for me, but it's also important that I do it for them because I want them to succeed. So whether it's being on stage or whether I'm behind the scenes, I'm always hands-on. When the show's over, I'm helping clean up and tidy up. I'm backstage packing stuff away and putting stools away that I've used on stage and putting tables away. It doesn't end when I walk off the stage. I don't just go back to my room and crack a beer and just, because they're down there working, so why shouldn't I be down there working? That's how I've always been, and that's how. And I think that's the key. One of the keys to my success is that I don't treat anybody like they're beneath me. I treat everybody like we're on an equal playing field.
Absolutely. That is, at its core, living the everybody pulls a tarp mindset. Matt, this has been so much fun. As we get ready to wrap up our conversation, Matt, I'm curious, given all the success that you've had, what's one or two areas that you still feel like you could grow in over the upcoming years, like areas of opportunity for professional and personal growth for Matt Johnson?
Wow. You know what? It sounds so much like a get out, but just every aspect in my life, I could grow. As a performer, as a dad, as a granddad, as a husband, as a son, as a brother, every aspect of my life needs work. I am far from perfect. I am not the best magician in the world. I do a good job and I'm reliable and I'm on time. But everything in my life needs work. And we talked about this earlier. The second that I ever think it doesn't, that's the moment where I got to hang it up and say, you know what? You're too big for your boots. Like, I think living life that way and being humble and being honest allows you to grow at every single moment. And that's not a get out. It's just that's every aspect of my life needs attention and nurturing at all times. And that will never stop. So, you know, I don't do this for me. I do it for my family. If it were up to me, I'd just be at home with my feet up. But I do it for my family. And that's my driving force. And yeah, I'm just trying to be a good human and a good person to everybody I meet. So, yeah.
Well, Matt, I mean, I know you don't need to hear this from me, but you're doing a tremendous job at all those things. You are just a remarkable person, a incredible performer, really one of the most thoughtful people that I've ever come across in any domain or dimension of my life. I mean, the thought and intention that you put into everything you do is really remarkable. And it just speaks to your character and who you are. And everybody can learn something from Matt Johnson, whether or not we've ever attempted a magic trick or not. Everybody can learn something from Matt Johnson.
I feel the same, man. Meeting you and your family was an absolute pleasure and privilege. And I really look forward to meeting people after my show because I don't blend in. Everybody knows who I am. But I look forward to those interactions because we can learn something from everybody we meet. And meeting you and being asked to do this is such an honor because I've seen the guests you've had on before. So, no, the pleasure's all mine. The honor's all mine. And thank you for being very kind. And it's very good of you. And what you're doing is also much needed in this world, especially now.
Well, Matt, I really appreciate you saying that. And it's very kind of you. And I'm just so grateful that our paths crossed. And this is our third or fourth conversation that we've had the opportunity to have. The first that we've recorded here for Everybody Pulls the Tarp. And I hope it's just one of many, many more that we get to have. I've learned so much from you. There is no question you are a tarp puller, certified member of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family. Matt Johnson, thank you so much for all that you do and for spending some time with me this week.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. All the best to your family, man. Take care.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you're like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.